Next session is called Living a Month Ahead. When we got married, I was the numbers guy. I enjoy spreadsheets. I love financial programs. And so almost by default, I became the one that takes care of the money in our family. I found most couples, one of the two is better at money, and usually they end up in charge of it. And we were very busy in the early days. We were in the ministry, teaching in a Christian school in New York, and not making a lot of money, but having a lot of fun. We did not have any children for the first 3 years. That was not on purpose. That was just God's plan for us. And then we started talking about going on deputation and getting ready to go to the mission field. And in the next 6 years, God gave us 5 children, one at a time, very close together. And my wife became very involved in working with the family and raising the kids, and I just carried on taking care of the money. When we moved to New Zealand, we were given a stipend. They actually pay you in New Zealand to have children. I mean, they pay for your children, then they give you 6 months of diapers, they give you free nursing visits, and then you start getting an allowance every couple of weeks for having a child. And at that point, having 5 children became an advantage, because we were getting a fairly good paycheck, and we were doing okay. We had our support coming in, and we had a little bit of extra from the government there in New Zealand. The exchange rate was pretty crazy. It's not a very big country, only 3.5 million people, and so the exchange rate was all over the place. And by the way, pray for your missionary. When you pray for your missionaries, pray about the exchange rate. We had at one point, our support, $1 US equaled $2.50 New Zealand, and 6 months later, $1 US equaled $1.32 New Zealand. And without losing a single supporting church, our support got cut in half. And I watched a lot of American missionaries leave and go home when that happened. I realized if we were going to stay, we needed something more steady. And I started reading books, started talking to people. This was about that 1999-2000 time where I was going through my financial rebirth, if you will. And I connected with some people that were into real estate, and I bought my first real estate property. Actually, my immigration lawyer that helped us get our residence visa was into real estate. He helped me get the first one, and we built up a small portfolio of rental properties. And honestly, that's why God let us stay in New Zealand, was because we had that extra income coming in. And I handled all of that, and I delighted in doing it. I enjoyed it. It didn't take a lot of time. I think probably the rentals probably took about 10 hours a month. That was the most I wanted to give to that. I was very much involved in the ministry at that time, and we needed the income, but I didn't want to give too much time, and so that kept us going. When we left New Zealand and went to Thailand, things changed drastically, and we lost. You can't own property as a foreigner in Thailand, so the whole real estate thing went out the window, and I couldn't do any of that. I loaned some money to a man here in the States to invest on my behalf, and he lost it. I thought about writing a book one time about how to lose $100,000. And step number 1, get $100,000. He lost $100,000. And we were back to square one. I mean, we'd been working hard and saving aggressively and trying to get ahead, and all of a sudden we were back to zero. And it was a difficult time. Financially, Thailand was difficult for us because I didn't have the opportunity to invest. Lost that, basically our life savings went out the window, and we couldn't do anything extra. In fact, in Thailand, I wasn't even legally allowed to mow our lawn, because you cannot do. The only work you can do in Thailand is what's on your work permit, and the work permit said I was an English teacher, so that's the only work that I was allowed to do. One of our men got arrested because he was standing in the mall handing out flyers advertising our language school, and the police said, "Thai people can do that. You're under arrest." So I wasn't allowed to do anything that Thai people could do, and the only thing they couldn't do was teach English to themselves, and so that's all and that means I couldn't earn any extra income there, and so I was carrying all of that weight, and to be honest, the entire time in Thailand, my wife didn't know. I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell her we'd lost all that money. I didn't tell her about how difficult things were. We lost some support moving from New Zealand to Thailand. Some of it was made up, some wasn't. We were struggling, and she didn't know. We just carried on, and what would happen is she would come and she would say, "Honey, this child needs to go to the dentist, or the kids need new shoes, or we haven't gone on a vacation in a while." And whenever that happened, I felt the weight of that, and it was overwhelming to me sometimes. I remember one time her coming to me and saying, we need this, and we got it in a little bit of a tiff, and missionaries do sometimes. They're human too. And we got in a little bit of a tiff, and she said, you're not taking care of your family. And I started weeping. I mean, it was too much for me at that point. I couldn't handle it. The fact that my wife told me I wasn't doing a good job when I was working at it so hard, trying to keep above water and not doing a good job of it. And I felt that. We came back to the States and things began to turn around, and I was able to get back into real estate a little bit, and we started making money different ways. And my wife's frugal, and she's a hard worker, and she flips furniture and does some other things, and things started picking up and looking a little bit brighter again. And we weren't in such a hole, but we were still at the point where we weren't communicating well. And at one point, out of frustration, I said to her, "Why don't you just run the money for 6 months?" And she said, "I will." Much sweeter than that. She said, "Oh dear, I will." But she started running the money for about 6 months. And I just wanted her to understand the pressure of it. And what she figured out was, in about 2 weeks, she figured out that you don't have to write checks and mail them. You can do everything online. And she had everything switched over to online accounts. And I thank God to this day, because I get every bill by email and pay it the same day. But I mean, that's what she figured out. I couldn't figure that out. I'm still, writing checks. But I felt like she never grasped the concept of all the weight there. She was just getting the bills paid. She wasn't following the trends. She wasn't seeing where we were headed. And at that point, we'd come back, and our life savings is gone. I haven't been able to do anything for 6 years. I'm still facing the fact that I've opted out of Social Security, and when I get to 65 or 70, there's nothing waiting for me there, and feeling the weight of taking care of it. Now our kids are going to college and all that, and really struggling. Last October 2020, I was reading a financial book, and I read a statement, and it was one of those revolutionary, kind of like what you've been hearing in the last day and a half here. No, I'm just kidding. It was one of those revolutionary, life-changing statements that helped me tremendously. It simply said, do all your finances together. Do all your finances together. And for the first time, I realized that my attitude had been, well, I'm the one that's good with numbers. I'm the one that's good with spreadsheets, and so I'm the one that's supposed to be handling the money. And I had counseled families where the man was absolutely useless with money, and the wife had to handle the finances, and I sat and talked with him and said, yeah, it's obvious that you should be the one handling the money, because if he gets $5, he's going to spend it or give it away. It'll be gone by the end of the day. You need to take care of the money. But it had never occurred to me that it should be done together. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how biblical that is. Because when God puts a man and a woman together, they become what? One flesh. They become one flesh. They become, in God's eyes, as a single entity, and that single entity needs to have unity. And it's a very well-known fact by all biblical counselors that the 4 areas that cause divorce are, number 1, disciplining the children, number 2, the in-laws, number 3, finances, and number 4, physical intimacy. Those are the 4 reasons people get divorced. And I think, in my experience, money is number 1 every time. It's the number 1 reason that couples fight and separate, is because they're not getting along with money, because they have different ideas of where they're at, and they're going in different directions, and there isn't that unity. And I went to my wife and I said, sweetheart, we need to make a change. From now on, we're going to do all of our finances together. We're going to sit down on a regular basis. We actually have a date called our money date every month. We do it as close as we can to the last day of the month. And we sit down and we have a money date. And we look at all the money that's come in. We look at all the money that's gone out. We look at what we have for the next month. And we have a money date, and we talk about every expenditure. Now, I'm not sure, but I think it's possible that one of the reasons that our marriage has become so much better because of this is because my wife can now trust me explicitly. Do you know, guys, it is impossible to fall into immorality without spending money. Money and immorality are invariably, they're tied together. And oftentimes, a man falls into immorality because he's already messed up on his money. In fact, there's a verse in Proverbs, and I'm not 100% on this, but it seems to me that the verse says that when a man falls into adultery, that the adultery is not the sin. That the adultery is the punishment for the sin that he's already doing. And I wonder if sometimes men don't fail God and their family with their money, and the result is they fall into adultery, and that's God punishing them for not handling their finances correctly. So I do know this. I know that the two are tied together, and that when a man goes into immorality, it shows up in his checkbook, and if there's problems with his checkbook, I'm really concerned about his morality, because they always go together. When I'm sitting down with my wife once a month and we're going over every penny that got spent, she knows that I'm not doing anything untoward. She knows that I'm handling my money correctly, and there's an openness there, and there's a communication there that we hadn't had before, and that's why this, our 31st year of marriage, is, in my opinion, the best year we've ever had being married. Because we have the US team, Mark and Amber Bosje Incorporated. We're on the same team. We talk about our goals. We talk about where we're headed in life. There's been some areas that we've been, I wouldn't say arguing about, but differing on for decades. And through talking about the money, we've kind of come together on this. One is retirement. Where are we going to retire? In my mind, my personal opinion, the ultimate retirement is a condo somewhere with a really good HOA, so I don't have to shovel snow, and I don't have to cut the grass, and I don't have to worry about emptying the trash, and somebody else does all of that, and we can hop on a plane and go visit missionaries in Africa for a month and not worry about the grass. Her ultimate idea of retirement is a house out in the country with a horse. I hate horses. Horses hate me. I don't get along with horses. But in talking that through together, she was able to explain her vision of our retirement to me, and I was able to explain mine, and we were able to come to a compromise, which is a small house out in the country with a horse. That's probably where we're going to end up. But if we hadn't done what we did and started talking about that together, those issues would still be there. Can I encourage you, if you're married today, do it together. Sit down and talk about it together. In fact, you know what? I might go a little bit further. When it comes time to pay the bills, sit down with your kids and do it as a family. So many young people come to college and they have no concept of how to pay a bill because they've never done it and they've never seen their parents do it. It's something that's done quietly behind closed doors, like it's wicked or something. And the whole idea of money is foreign to them, and they come and they leave home and they jump out of the nest and they can't fly because they don't know what they're doing. Sit down with your bills and say, hey kids, look, here's our electric bill. This pays for our lights, our heat maybe. This pays for the Wi-Fi to stay on. How many like the Wi-Fi staying on? Yeah. This pays for that. Get the kids involved. Get them to buy in. Then when you say, hey, make sure when you leave your room you turn the lights off, they have some idea of why. Boy, if I turn the light off, it might keep the Wi-Fi on. A little bit of motivation there. Pull them in and let them do it with you. When you're writing checks, sit down and show them what you're doing. It's embarrassing how many 20-year-olds are coming to Bible college and can't fill out a check because they've never seen anybody do it. Sit down and do that with your children. Say, here's your pay to the order of, and here's where you write the name, and here's where you put the number, and here's where you write it out. That's why you took that class in math in high school, so you know how to write out the number correctly. Here's where you sign it. Here's a memo in case you need to write something. Tear it out. Don't rip it in half while you're doing it. And the fact that there's another one under it doesn't mean you still have money. Now, we're going to go to the register, and you're actually going to record it right now while you're doing it so you don't lose track of where that check went. Teach them that. Do that together. So we began doing that. And almost as soon as we started doing it, I had an idea, and I said to my wife, I have an idea, I want to try this. And she said, let's try it. And we decided to do this. Ready? We're going to live a month ahead. We're going to live a month ahead. Let me tell you what that means to live a month ahead. And by the way, you can't do it right away. It's going to take some time to get to it. It's going to take some effort. And there might be a couple of months of what Dave Ramsey calls scorched earth. where for a couple of months you don't do anything extra. You don't go out to eat one time. You don't buy any new clothes. You don't do anything extra. You live scorched earth for a couple of months so that you can get to the point where you're living 1 month ahead. But I'll tell you what, since we started doing this, our life has become so simple and so easy. Here's what happens when you're living 1 month ahead. Throughout the month, you put all of your income into a joint account. That right there hair lips 90% of the people I know. Well, I got my money and she's got her money. Wait a minute, I thought you were one flesh. I just went, last February, I went to Ghana, West Africa. And I was teaching on marriage there. My wife and I got to go together, which was phenomenal. And we spent 5 days there in Kumasi in Ghana, West Africa. And I spoke 22 times. My wife spoke 11 times, and then we slept the next week. But we talked about marriage, and we were talking about money. And in one of the sessions, I was talking about money. And one of the men raised his hand, and he said this. He said, "Pastor, are you talking about my money, or are you talking about my wife's money?" And every man in the room said, "Yeah." Because in their culture, when a woman gets married, everything that's hers stays hers, and everything that's his stays his, and they have all kinds of marriage problems. If you're one flesh, you're in this together. Probably, in most cases, the man is going to put more money into the account than the wife does, but that's okay. You're the breadwinner. Go bring home the bacon, amen? Let her stay home and take care of the kids. Maybe she does work a job. And sometimes and occasionally she makes more than you do, and that's fine too. You're in this together. You're on a team. This is what we make as a family. When my wife sold that dresser and $325 went into the account and we wrote the check for $25 or paid the tithe, I do it on my phone now. We got a phone app and I paid it with the phone app. Bam, $25 over to the church, and that's done. And we rejoice together. Hey, we're on the same team. That's a win for both of us. When I went and preached at a church and got a love offering, brought it home, put it in the offering or in the joint account, we rejoiced together. Hey, we had a good month. We're winning together. That's the first thing. Some of you need to write this down or take a picture of the screen or whatever you do. I don't want you to miss this. This is good stuff. Throughout the month, put all of your income into a joint account. Number 2, pay your tithe immediately. That's why I love the phone app. I don't even have to wait till Sunday anymore. I like doing stuff right away. I get paid, I tithe the same day if I can. Right away. All right? Pay your tithe immediately. Number 2, pay minimum payments on your debts immediately. If somebody hands you $500 and you get that money, you go home and you say, "Sweetheart, I got paid today, sit down, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do our tithe, and if we can, we're going to pay it right now. If not, let's put it in an envelope and put it inside the front cover of my Bible so it's there Sunday morning. I can put it in the offering plate, but we're going to take care of that right away. First thing, tithe's taken care of. Secondly, we're going to take care of our debts. That's number 2 priority, remember? And so we're going to take this money, we're going to put it on the minimum payments of my debts. Do it right away. I don't understand why you would let your bills sit around for a while if you have the money in the account. You say, "Well, I might get a little bit of interest." You might get 0.3 cents. It's not worth the hassle. There's a really good feeling of knowing I don't have a single bill right now that's not paid. Because every one that I get, I pay it immediately. If it shows up in the mail, I get it paid that day. If the email shows up before I go to bed that night, it's already paid. I do all of it immediately. So I'm paying all those minimum payments right away. All right? Put your savings into a separate account. We get paid, the money goes in our joint account, and we do a transfer online, and it happens immediately. So literally, I get paid, and within an hour, God's got his tithe. Any debt, any minimum payments on the debts are made, and the money, the separate money is in the savings account. It's out of the picture. Immediately. As fast as I possibly can, I want to get this done and do it right. All right? Next, pay all of your bills immediately. Right away. I get them. I check my emails, and if I do it in the morning, they're paid before noon. If I get home from work, open my emails, and there's a bill there, it's paid before I go to bed. I'm going to pay it right away. You say, Brother Bushy, what if you don't have the money? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to show you how you'll always have the money and you can always pay it right away. All right? You're going to pay all of your bills immediately. Okay? There we go. At the end of the month, go over the numbers together. Okay, let me back up and just explain. Here's what happened when we went from living month to month to living a month ahead. What we did is we went scorched earth for a little while, and we saved up so that the money that we were spending was not from this month. We got a month ahead, which means that, okay, we just finished August. Here's what happened in August. In August, Mark and Amber Bushy Incorporated, all of the income that came in throughout the month of August went into our joint account. And as it came in, it immediately got tithed on. And as it came, now we don't have any debt except for our house, but if we did, immediately any bills or any debts that we had, we would have made the minimum payment immediately. And then immediately, as I got paid through the month of August, and I got paid twice last month because I get paid fortnightly or biweekly, as the paycheck came in, the tithe went out, and immediately the money got moved into savings. And that happened throughout the month of August. Now, last month, I got paid twice. Last month, my wife sold the dresser. And last month, I got a $200 check, a love offering from a church that I was at a while ago, and they decided to send me some more. And so we got those were the four things that came in last month, and all of that went into the joint account. My paycheck twice, and the dresser money, and the love offering, that all went in. So we got to the end of the month of August, and by the end of the month of August, all the money that came in was there, minus the tithe, that was gone, minus any debt payments, and minus any money that went into savings, that was all gone. Also, throughout the month of August, every bill that came in got paid immediately. So what happened is, on the last day of August, my wife and I sat down and had our money date. And we looked at the money and we said, here, honey, here's my 2 paychecks. Here's the money from your dresser. Here's the money that I got that was a love offering. Here's all the income. Here's where the money went out. That money went into savings, and this much went to tithe. And here's all the bills that got paid. And she went down the list with me. Okay, I see that. The numbers all match up. And here's what we have left. This is the money left over. Now, the money left over is ours to spend, because I've already tithed, I've already paid my debts, I've already put money in savings, and I've already paid all the bills. And so the money that's left over on August 31st, this is how much that she and I can spend throughout the month of September. Now, if I get paid in September, I can't spend that. Does that make sense? I can't spend it because that's going to be the money for October. As the money's coming in this month, the money's coming in and the tithe's going out, the money's coming in, the bills are getting paid, the money's coming in, the money's going to savings. I'm not touching that money, I'm handling the money, but I'm only spending the money that was left over from August. So the money that I have right now, and we sat down, we split it up. That's always fun. How much do you want? How much do I get? And we kind of negotiate with each other, and we come up to an agreement. And a couple times we've said, you know what? Let's put a little extra in savings this month because we had a good month. There's a little extra left over. Let's give more to savings this month. But we end up with money in our pocket, and I've got money in my pocket right now, and I can spend it any way I want, any time that I want this month because all my bills are paid. I'm living a month ahead. This month I'm going to get paid twice, and the paychecks are coming in, and any extra that comes in, the money that comes in, it's all going to go in the account. I'm going to do the same thing again. We're going to pay the tithe. We're going to pay any minimum payments on our debts. We're going to put money in savings. We're going to pay all of our bills. And when we get to the end of September, on September 30th, we're going to sit down, run the numbers again, and say, hey, here's how much we have left. Now, sometimes we get to the end of the month, and there's not much left. And then we know ahead of time next month's going to be tight. We're going to live different next month. Sometimes we get to the end of the month and there's a considerable amount left, and hey, next month's going to be fun. And you've been wanting to buy that picture to hang on the wall. This is the time to do it, sweetheart. We got to the end of one month and we had a good month and some money left over. And I said, sweetheart, I'm on my last pair of contacts. This is the month I'm going to go and get an eye appointment and get new contacts because we have the money this month. See, here's what happens with most people. They're living in the month. And in the month, the money comes in and they say, well, I got to get contacts. And so they go get contacts and they get to the end of the month and say, how are we going to pay this bill? But if you've already paid the bill from the month before, you don't have that problem. That one thing right there has changed our marriage. It's taken all the pressure off financially. You say, what happened if an emergency came up? Well, then if it's an emergency, you take the money out of the emergency fund, and then this month, when you get to the time where it's savings, you take your savings and put it back in the emergency fund until you can build that back up again. That make sense? Okay, let's see if we got any slides left here. Yep, here's the last one. Decide together how to spend what's left. Boy, that's fun, isn't it? I told preacher this is going to be a shorter session because it's not really complicated. This is one of those things that's really easy, just hard to do. But I would encourage you, 2 things from this session. Number 1, do it together. And number 2, live a month ahead. Take a lot of pressure off. It's almost a game. I'm going to go home this afternoon and I'm going to open up a spreadsheet and I'm going to open my emails and I'm hoping I get a bill because there's money there to pay it. Amen? I love paying my bills right away. I haven't had a late bill in 10 years. I like paying them right away. And I like paying my debts right away. And I like paying my tithe right away. And I want to get all of it paid for right away. And then at the end of the month, whatever's left, we're going to go have a good time. Now, sometimes we have enough left over, we can roll some over into the next month. That's always nice, too. We're saving up for something that we're going to do in October. And so at the end of this month, we'll have a little bit extra. And we actually saved a little bit from August that we're going to roll over into this month so we can have more extra at the end of next month so we can do something special. We can plan ahead that way. Any questions about any of that? I'm not sure if that was the first time I've ever taught that lesson because we just started doing it. But man, is it a game changer. Anybody have any questions about that? Any thoughts that helped you there? Anybody got any input? Yes, sir? That is not one of the bills. That's what we live off. Yeah. So the bills are the things that I get billed for. I mean, I'm changing definitions a little bit from last night. But the bills would be the electric bill, car insurance bill, the phone bill, those things that come in. That gets paid right away. When we get to the end of the month and we say, okay, this is what we have left. This is for groceries. This is for toiletries and makeup. This is for gas for the car. All the stuff that we're going to use through the month. I know how much I have for that. So it used to be this. It used to be I was handling all of that, and then my wife would say, honey, I want to drive down and see my parents. And my first thought is, from Indiana to North Carolina and back, probably $150 in gas. That's my first thought. Her thought is, don't you love my parents? Instant clash. Now we sit down at the end of the month, and she says, honey, can we figure out how much we have left over because I want to figure out if I can go see my parents? And I say, well, here's the numbers. And I think if we don't go out to eat it all, then you probably can afford to go see your parents. And we're in it together. We're making it work together. And the unity there is so amazing. Very enjoyable to do that. Okay, good question. Anybody else? All right, we're supposed to take a 15-minute break here. It is right now, we'll call it 10:25. And so let's come back here at 10:40, and we'll have the next session when we get back.